Hello and welcome. The research that I will be presenting today comes from the article Using Social Media for Social Comparison and Feedback Seeking, Gender and Popularity Moderate Associations with Depressive Symptoms. This was a quantitative study undertaken in the US in which the researchers investigated whether or not technology-based behaviors, specifically social comparison and interpersonal feedback seeking, were associated with depressive symptoms in teens. They had a large group of 12 to 14-year-olds participate in a series of computer-assisted self-interviews during school hours. A year later, they asked the same students to repeat the exercise. They measured a lot of things like socioeconomic status, peer-reported popularity, and excessive reassurance seeking, for example. And they used widely used methods like the short mood and feelings questionnaire and sociometric nomination procedures. Overall, there were 6 different types of data to analyze, and they tested their hypothesis, which was that they would find links, using Pearson correlations and hierarchical multiple linear regression frameworks. And they accounted for variables like prior depressive symptoms in teens by using controls. Basically, what all of their research concluded was that they were right. There definitely was a link between behaviors that teens exhibit online, such as comparing themselves to their peers online and seeking feedback from their peers, and depressive symptoms. But they didn't find any correlation between the amount of time that teens spend on technology and depressive symptoms. The findings are kind of linked to the mediators and moderators here, so I'm going to discuss them together. Firstly, the mediators that the authors used to describe the reasons for the correlation between the behaviors studied and the depressive symptoms were that online environments themselves lead to more feedback-seeking and comparison-based behaviors because they ask students to construct idealized identities based on these things and ask them to view others' idealized identities as well. They also described how these distorted images cause students to compare themselves to people that they think are better than them, which can affect their self-esteem. The 2 major moderators that came out of this study were gender and level of popularity. The students who were most likely to exhibit depressive symptoms linked to feedback seeking and comparison behaviors were unpopular girls. The mediators affecting gender include girls being more likely to compare themselves to others physically than boys, and the fact that girls tend to have stronger links between stress and depression. The mediators affecting the level of popularity are the fact that unpopular students were more likely to send out negative posts and comments and were therefore more likely to receive negative feedback. This meant that they were less likely to feel supported, and their lack of popularity also led to lower numbers of followers, which meant that they had smaller audiences, and that's linked to lower life satisfaction. The research is fairly reliable because of the large sample sizes and the number of data sources that have been gathered. They do recommend that more research is needed. They would like to use a larger population in the future that takes into consideration more ethnicities because this study mostly consisted of black and white teens. They also know that research relying solely on student answers probably contains some bias, and that they might get different results if they were to conduct the research outside of school. The study is important to mental health studies related to technology because behaviors like these have been studied in the past but never really taken into consideration how their effects have been heightened or lessened by the amount of technology that students use. And this study begins to answer those questions by acknowledging that teens' development largely takes place on social media, and that's the new reality. This article led me to shift my research towards social media and teen girls' mental